Hey guys, good to see a few of you already in the chat. Always a welcome surprise. How are you guys doing? Everyone all right? Should be given the bounce. Let me see. Census says, guys, I didn't slap the Dippery note. I don't feel so good. Yeah, that sucks to hear, my friend. That sucks to hear. Should have read the newsletter. Hey Don, hope you're good, man. I'm good. I'm really good. A little bit tired. Been pretty much sleeping the entire week. Kind of catching up on sleep from the weekend, but doing all right. How was golf? Golf was great. I didn't make the first few spots because it wasn't as handicap weighted as I would have liked it to, but I beat a bunch of people with better handicap and a bunch of people that actually have played for a meaningful amount of time, so happy with myself. And I didn't make an absolute fool out of myself, so went well. You made me sell the top and now I caught 37,700. Is that because of the newsletter? If yes, fuck yeah. What handicap did you play with? So, like, my handicap is the worst that it can be, which is, I think, for 54. And I had to perform with, like, a 21 handicap. So, yeah, that was a little bit unfair. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I don't mind. Will you continue playing golf? Yeah. I gotta win it next year. It's gonna be the same thing next year. And I already said I'm gonna win it, so... Yep. Before we start the show, I want to thank today's sponsor, which is FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio, for the people that are confused. They've rebranded. It's still the same app. You can find it if you look for FTX in the App Store, or if you just follow the links in the description. So yeah, if you want to do any kind of portfolio tracking or mobile trading, that's the way to go, in my opinion. So if you want to do any of that, check out the links in the description. If you don't, that's fine also. Where can I sign up for the newsletter? It's it's trletter.com, if I remember correctly. If that leads to the wrong thing, I'm sorry. But yeah, that should be it. Please, Don, could you tell Cred the Twitter Spaces are the worst support to share content? Why not just YouTube? I mean, he's just enjoying it, so he'll come back at some point. So yeah. FTX to sponsor a golf major in the future. That'd be hilarious if I played there. But then I have the docs, probably. But yeah, that's it for the small talk. We can do some of it later. Bunch of stuff happened. Had a good few days. But let's start with Bitcoin, shall we? So while I was gone, we've had this fake out to the upside, right? Which isn't really surprising, given like it was just basically a straight move up. So a little bit of a pullback made sense. The pullback occurred basically right above the range, right above 40k. It broke to the downside and then headed straight for the first support, right? And this is something that Cred and I, like that support is something that Cred and I mentioned in the newsletter, because we're like, it's either gonna stop there or like in the 35k range. And as long as it stops either here or here, it's completely fine, right? It starts getting really shitty if it starts losing 35k, right? Like this is a must-hold area. If that fails, I think we're in for like much lower prices. As long as that's holding, makes much more sense to kind of look for buys, right? And yeah, it bounced from the first support. Now the thing is, like, we are reasonably close to range high. again, right? Like the 40K area. And something that I've talked about in the past, but I mean, I just want to like talk about it again real briefly, is when you have like a range, right? And the bottom or the top gets tested a bunch of times, right? At some point, you don't want to be trading that support or resistance anymore, because I mean, it's been kind of like everyone that wanted to buy or everyone that wanted to sell at resistance has already done so. And then it either like goes down or goes up and you're stuck holding a shitty position, right? But that is not true whenever like prices have already broken down and then go back up again. Then like the support turns into amazing support again. And the same thing is true for the upside, right? It breaks down, it comes down again, and then you have resistance and it's fine to use again, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because that's basically the case in here, right? So if you look at this is like the strongest resistance that we have. If you want to be a bear, like that is the resistance that you want to be selling, right? You want to be selling here, you have your stop loss somewhere there, and you can target either here or a full breakdown, right? So that's why I think like there's going to be some resistance in the 40K range. The thing is, I mean, this setup is pretty obvious, right? And the thing is, a bunch of people are going to take it, and the moment you start actually closing back above that resistance, I think there's a good chance that you just go, right? So that means that if you're wrong here, and if you're wrong bearish, you're gonna get fucked up. But it also means that being bearish there is really good risk reward, because one, you have your hard stop loss, and this is something I've talked about before as well, hard and soft stop losses, which is if the market moves above your hard stop loss, you just get out, and then your soft stop loss, your like invalidation, soft invalidation, is just to close above that resistance here at 40.5K, right? So what you do have in this situation is you have a really tight risk reward with both the hard and the soft stop loss, because let's say this closes like here, like a candle like this, excuse my drawing skills, then you know, okay, you don't want to be trading this anymore, and then you can just get the fuck out with like a 2% loss or whatever. And your target is, like I said, like 13% or full breakdown. So I think like there's a really good bearish play to be made. Now, I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be playing out, right? That means I'm not 100% certain that we're actually like just going to go down again. But just from a trading perspective, that's a really good trade that I would always, almost always take in situations like these. Right now, I'm not really shorting though, so I'm not interested. But I just thought I'd mention it. Like this is like the kind of the trade that I took all the way, like basically every time this setup happened in 18, and pretty much played out like most of the time, right? So I think like on the bearish side of things, you have a pretty good setup, but you also have a pretty damn good setup below or like in the range of 35K on the bullish side of things, right? You want to be bullish. This dips into 35K. You know exactly that you don't want to see a close below. So that's your okay, I need to get the fuck out signal if you start losing this on a closing basis. And then you also have your stop loss that you can just place a little bit lower, right? So like both of those trades are decent. I think right now the bullish trade, I mean, if you bought 37, I think that's a good trade to be had towards 45. Anything beyond that is too risky right now. I think it makes much more sense like if you took a long from support, take it off as resistance and then re-add above resistance once it gets reclaimed, right? That's my kind of view on like potential trade setups right now. I'd be fine with buying 35K if I get the setup, and I'm fine with buying above 45. Right now, I don't wanna, and if you look at this support down here, like it pretty much got tagged to the dollar or just a little bit front ran. So that trade's already gone. Does that make sense? I think like those are the two best setups that you can get out of this range. And I'm actually glad that we broke to the upside and faked back down again, because that gives pretty much everyone in the market a clear invalidation, gives some nice trade setups. Pretty much the exact same thing that we had here, just like on the other side of things. But I think that it makes much more sense in general to be bullish, given that we broke out of like we made a new high on the weekly. So as long as that's the case, right, you don't want to be too bearish as long as 35k holds on the weekly. So the bearish trade has to be taken with a grain of salt. The only reason why I'm even mentioning it is because it's such a good setup with such a tight invalidation. Would you sell then as well if you bought 37.5? Yeah, the thing is, like, if you buy down here, right? But generally speaking, nowadays, even more so when the market is moving like this, I don't mind like taking 10, 15, 20% and then potentially missing a bigger move afterwards, right? I just like to take it from support to resistance, not being stuck in a position too long. And I think like if you want to be in a position, you can hold this entry. But generally speaking, at 45, something I always do when the market isn't clearly trending bullish or bearish, right? Whenever I have a trade going, let's say I'm long, market goes up, and then I get like a short setup, right? Instead of shorting, if I'm like bullish, I just close the long and then let it come back and then just re-long the next bullish setup, or let it break out and then try to buy back basically where I sold, or roughly where I sold anyway. Like that's usually how I try to play around these positions when I have like a bias going. And the same thing on the short side. It's just this year I'm not really doing the short side too much. So given that this is like one of my best like bearish setups, I wouldn't want to take a long through it. I'm fine with taking a long above it. Even though weekly closed as SFP, yeah, this one isn't really like, nah, I wouldn't call this an SFP. And even if you do, like this is a marginal one. Like if you want to have like a strong like SFP-ish kind of thing, you want to engulf pretty much, or like take out a major high or low or whatever, not something like this. Like I mean, it could go down from that. It's just like for me, this is not significant enough. And on the higher time frames, you rarely get SFPs in the first place. It's just not how these tend to play out. And it closed above resistance, so that's more important than any kind of SFP or whatever you want to call this. Evening all, bullish BTC, bearish ETH soon. I don't want to touch ETH out of like multiple reasons. One, like you have EIP coming. You don't want to be stuck in that. Like if you're not super native to like ETH and you know how EIP is gonna hit, I just tend to avoid like news like that, like trading news like that. I don't mind trading them before. I don't mind being bullish into like something and then selling like a week before. But like I'm not really the fundamental kind of guy. And given I'm not, I just like whenever you have news coming in, right, or news approaching, your TA going into the news isn't gonna do much. It's just gonna be wild action. After the news, you can kind of make a judgment call, right? Like that's what I did up here, right? Let's actually look at it on the daily. This is what I made in here, right? You can make a judgment call based on, okay, we've had bullish news, we had coin listing up here. That didn't lead to anything, so that's bearish, right? So now you can look at ETH doing the same thing, right? Is it gonna be bullish afterwards, after EIP, or is it not? And if it's not, that might be another top incoming here, right? And it might head down. And if it is, it might just rally all the way to 3.2k. And that's where it gets really interesting to me. So like, I don't really see a good reason to trade ETH because it's just like my bread and butter basically doesn't work into the news event itself. It only works after and going into it, like a while before it actually happens, right? So on the day, we're just gonna see like wild price action probably, and that's not something that I'm like really looking forward to trading. So for me, Bitcoin makes much more sense to kind of monitor. But if you have like any kind of knowledge and on the matter, if you're pretty sure it's gonna play out bullishly or bearishly, then you can use that to your advantage, right? It's just not for me. You mean 40.5 or 45k? I don't know what I said, but I mean 40.5. Jesus Christ. Yeah, this 45 doesn't, like, there's nothing in here for me. So if you take out 40,500, there's no real technical resistance for me on the daily chart till quite a bit higher. So yeah, I'm not gonna short anything. I'm looking forward to buying, like, because like people don't realize, right? Like I bought down here and sold pretty much the next day up here, right? So like even if I didn't do anything, the luxury of having like the ability to just sit there, rebuy what I sold in here, ignoring that I've had like 4 good trades in here, pretty nice. Because at some point, right, you want to be buying into strength, and given I sold into weakness in here, I can just rebuy on the right side, and I'm more than happy to do that if the market looks really bullish at that point. So yeah. Can you do TA on CryptoPunks? Nope, I can't. But we'll talk, like Cred and I will talk about NFTs on our podcast this week. So tune into that if you're interested in like why NFTs, whatever. Because I mean, I'm not the biggest NFT art fan, but that's because I just generally think like most art is just retarded. Excuse my language. You sponsored by FTX now? Yeah, Robert. So FTX owns Blockfolio, and Blockfolio rebranded to FTX. So now you have FTX, the exchange, and FTX Blockfolio. And yeah, we're basically sponsored by the Blockfolio part of the FTX, which is mega confusing. But yeah, they decided it was like less confusing. I don't necessarily agree, but I mean, it's their decision, right? But yeah, if you want to like, in general, like when you kind of tell people where to go when they start out with crypto, like I usually try to refer people to Blockfolio because you can't really do much wrong there with regards to leverage trading and all that kind of stuff, while you kind of have to be a little bit better at what you do if you do like the leverage trading route. So now I have to tell people, look for the FTX thing that was formerly known as Blockfolio, which makes it a little bit more confusing, but I guess, yeah, is what it is. Am I the only one looking at 39 to 40k to short? I just legitimately talked about like a short setup in exactly that range, 40.5-ish. Like that's the best setup that I can see right now if you absolutely have to take a trade. But I mean, shorting after a weekly high is a little bit dangerous. I'm not too bearish. I'm not too bullish given the daily, but I'm not too bearish given the weekly. And in general, like the daily doesn't look too bad either. I'm just waiting for the market to give me a little bit more direction, but it's already doing quite a bit on the upside of things, right? Showing quite a bit of strength already. So yeah, that's Bitcoin. Like I said, ETH a little bit more rough. There's not really anything to talk about on the TA side of things. ETH BTC, Hasn't really moved much. ETH USD right at resistance, bounced from support. Like I said, this is just going into news. I'd stay away. And I mean, if you have upside targets and goes completely crazy, take it like to 30.2k, 30.2, 3.2. 32 would be pretty insane for ETH. But no, 3.2k, like that's the resistance that is like legitimately massive. So like in general, like if I wanted to make an argument for like a complacency bounce on ETH, I think like having something like this as the complacency bounce would make a lot of sense. Like at that point, it's the same setup that I just showed you for Bitcoin, right? Bears are gonna come in hot and short this basically from here. Stop losses above there, like soft stop above this resistance, and then try to take it lower. So I think there's gonna be like that's the best place to trade ETH on the short side. And if that turns around, who the fuck knows like where ETH is gonna go, right? Right now it's really difficult. I don't want to trade it. Someone asked about Litecoin, asking like whether the bottom's in. Nope, I don't think so. Like look at Litecoin. Litecoin's a piece of shit, man. I'm sorry. But like there's literally no support left on Litecoin. So you can play the bullish reclaim if you have to up here, but for me this is not enough of a shakeout. Like I'd much rather buy anything else rather than like this is basically a chart that is doing something like this. And then people are gonna say, oh, this is constricting, whatever, on the downside. But to me, this is just like, it's just walking down. And if you turn off log chart, you can see how scuffed this is. And unless I get like a massive shakeout where people absolutely fucking hate Litecoin again, I don't see the point. Like I'd much rather buy some of the newer projects that have like a little bit more hype going for them. But yeah, like I don't mind trading Litecoin. It's just like right now, like this is even this is a bearish retest. The thing is, it's down 99% basically. So yeah, like shorting this seems ape because altcoins can do something like this, and then you're wrecked. But like buying this seems equally bad, at least right now. But could be wrong on that front. It's just like I think this is gonna make new lows on the Bitcoin pair, and it's really damn close. And obviously not expecting it to go down to like this. This is just like an illiquid wick, but I'm expecting it to make new lows below here. Okay, so yeah, that's that. With regards to the altcoins, like the older coins look kind of shit. Some of the newer coins look good. Some of the newer coins look garbage, right? Best thing to talk about right now, I think, is Dogecoin because I mean, I don't know, like for some reason people are still holding this garbage. I can circle every single green candle in this, and I think it's gonna look the exact same the entire way down. And at some point, this is gonna make like a massive bounce, right? And people are gonna be like, Doge's back, baby, and then it's gonna bleed out again. And then it's gonna do a massive bounce again, maybe even make like a higher bounce, and then it's gonna bleed out again. So if you wanna trade that, be my guest. Investing in this, yeah. And this is the classical kind of XRP pattern. I've talked about this before, maybe even last week, I don't remember. But yeah, look at this. This is how like these things, like heavy distribution with people like trying urgently to get the fuck out looks like. Right? So you get these massive pumps that get people excited again. And then, and again, and again, and again, right? And in between, there's like massive pumps as well, which get like an entire, like, this one pretty much got everyone bullish XRP again. And I mean, it pumped a shitload, right? right? This is like a 2x, almost 3x. You have like a bunch of big moves, but in the end, like it just bleeds out, and that's basically the exact same thing that Doge is doing, right? So expecting that to continue, expecting big pumps at some point, but like the general direction is down. The pumps are basically just there to fuck shoulders over and to get new people in that kind of get hyped. But in general, like expect this to go down some more. Like if you wanna trade altcoins, look at the ones that are new, look at the ones that are shiny, look at the ones that are actually moving to the upside. The older ones, not so much. And I have this here? No. You can look at the new ones if you guys want to, or we look at the older ones. I don't really mind either. Let me know what you think. Should we look at the like new stuff? Should we look at the old stuff? Should we look at Bitcoin, ETH? Let me know. And while I'm waiting for the chat to decide, I'll answer some questions. How's your golf game? My golf game is pretty shit, but then again, like I started like 3 weeks ago, and I feel like I'm pretty good for 3 weeks, but I'm not good in general. New stuff. Everyone look at this. This is just like the chat distribution. Chat already wants the new stuff. Bitcoin ETH. I mean, we talked about Bitcoin and ETH a little bit. If you have any like questions regarding them in detail, like give me a detailed questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer them. Is it just me, or did FTX come out of nowhere? I mean, they were around for a while, but yeah, for most people, like they did kind of start and then just ballooned and went crazy. And that's because like they kept on adding stuff that people wanted, right? Like most exchanges just do their own like kind of what they think is best, and then like FTX kind of did what people wanted to trade, which worked out really well. Thoughts on futures trading and what platforms are best? I use KuCoin currently. I wouldn't touch KuCoin, dude. Like in general, like KuCoin seems, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put my money on there. I don't think they're probably not gonna like do anything like shady with it. It's just like I wouldn't trust them. Like if anything, like go to Bitfinex, go to FTX, obviously. Binance is kind of like shutting their doors, so it's kind of a little bit difficult there. But like Bitfinex, FTX, Binance, I can't really recommend. Like I don't have any problem with Binance, but I'd much rather go to the other two. Kraken, yeah, you can do Kraken. Kraken is fine-ish. Liquidity is kind of shitty there, but it's not a bad choice, I think. KuCoin is good for USA users. Yeah, that's why I would never touch it. Because if they don't give a fuck about regulations, right, have fun getting wrecked, basically. Like, they're obviously, like, if you're doing something against the law, right, having, like, US users on there, then, I mean, do you really want to trust them with your money? I don't think so. Like I wouldn't. But then again, up to everyone else to decide. But like anything in general, I wouldn't want to use any exchange that isn't kind of obeying laws, right? Because if they don't, I mean, they already broke a law, might as well break a few others, right? So okay, but a bunch of people said that they want to talk about the newer coins, so we can go through the Solana list. I mean, Solana's actually not looking too terrible on the USD pair. Let's look at it on the Bitcoin pair. It looks a little bit worse. But like generally speaking, this isn't too bad, right? There's not really too much TA to do here. There's just a big consolidation range, right? I mean, you can kind of, is there a time frame? Yeah, look at this. Nice. I actually drew this a while ago. So you bounce from support, right, and you're rallying right into resistance. It's kind of like this range, this tight range. I could see it range in there some more against Bitcoin, and then against USD, right? It kind of did a range reclaim, and it's something that we talk about a lot on here. You did a range reclaim. The moment you started breaking out above it, rallied, right? And the top of the range, if you want to be greedy, is this, right? So that should be your target. And if you want to be less greedy, I mean, it could be this too. That's kind of where it hit already. I think this is a little bit better. But yeah, that's your range kind of on Solana. So if you want to play this for some more, go for it. And then the nice thing is it broke this resistance in here. So now what you want to see is it closing above this consecutively, right? So you don't want to see this roll over. At the moment it starts losing mid-range, let's say you entered somewhere into the breakout, right? At that point I cut my losses whenever I see that, right? Don't have to be too stubborn waiting for the resistance up here if it gives you signs that it's weak, right? So in this case, pretty nice trade if you took it from lower, because you now have like an invalidation higher than your entry, and that's always good to have. But yeah, Sol not looking too terrible. It's one of the few coins that looks okay on the Bitcoin pair and good on the USD pair. How do I get rich quick with $1,000? Do you have rich parents or like grandparents that you can kind of inherit something from? Because that's probably your best bet. Otherwise, grind, man. Find out like what works. Find an edge in the market. Try to abuse it. Might work, might not work. Worked for me, but I got really lucky. And I didn't start out with more than you had. But I would still say that like I had a bunch of luck, so there you go. Hey Duck, can you get Crypto Dog as guest anytime soon? I'm sure I could, yeah, on a Friday, a Casual Friday episode. Sure I could. Do you look at central pivot range and other pivot points? No, not really. Like I'm more than happy with like the support resistance kind of stuff. But yeah, that's Solana, right? If you want to look, this is still hilarious to me. DOT, right? Basically every influencer on this planet shilled ICOs on this thing, and all of them went to zero, right? And the DOT, like the thing is with this coin, basically everyone shilled the ICOs on this. And a bunch of DOT holders just kind of threw money in there too, because why not? Might multiply your dot, and then everything dumped, and people dumped, like the ICO guys dumped their dot for ETH or Bitcoin or USD. So like DOT did really well, really poorly, so doubly fucked, right? In general, this is a pretty damn shitty chart. That said, it did kind of reclaim this, right? So if you want to look at this, it did kind of reclaim it, so I could see like a bearish retest like up there on the Bitcoin pair, but this is like already a tall order, I think. And on the USD pair, it looks kind of hideous as well. That said, if you want to take, if you absolutely want to have this, I think this is a fine support to buy. Like if you absolutely have to buy this, even though like this is bearish market structure, it's bearish everything. Like let's say this rolls in here, you have your stop loss, your soft invalidation somewhere down here. So if it closes outside of the box somewhere in here, you can get out before your stop loss hit, so you don't lose too much. And then you can target like somewhere in here. So $24 or something, 25. And I think that's a decent-ish trade. It's just like, this is one of the worst looking coins. It just had a 2x bounce, which is hilarious, given like I mean, just did the bear market thing in no time whatsoever. Like 2 months, and you have like your 80% drawdown already. And whenever you see this, like a coin being significantly weaker than the rest, you can play the bounce, because usually what happens, if you have a coin that goes down 90% while everything goes down, and these go down like 70 or 60%, this is gonna rebound at the start. It's gonna rebound much bigger than the coins that didn't go as low. And that's because like a bunch of people capitulate and a bunch of people come in from the sidelines being like, okay, this is down a shitload and the market is turning, so it's gonna bounce bigger than the rest, right? So that's where these bounces come from. But the difference is this is gonna just bleed out again while the stronger coins just make new highs, right? So what you do like with this is basically how these play out. And at that point, right, at the start, you're super happy that we bought it because you make more money, and then you get fucked, and then it goes up a little higher, and then at some point you get even more fucked. And while the stronger coins make new highs, and then, yeah, it's kind of shitty. So in general, like whenever you see these coins that lost a shitload, while they're going down and you see momentum turning, you can take a stab at it. But I think at some point when they're like, they already showed that they're exceptionally weak and there's a bunch of people that want to get out. You don't want to bet on that dying horse. You want to get somewhere where you actually see buyers still, right? So in this case, like this is the fact that this died so hard is a sign of weakness. And then the only reason why it bounced so hard is because it died so hard. But the follow-up play is going to be much weaker than on stronger coins. Hope that makes sense. Can you take a look at BNB? Yeah, sure. BNB actually, like with Binance in the situation that it's in, right? I'm not the biggest fan of like even if the chart looked good, which we can look at in a sec. I don't even know what this meant. Yeah, even if the chart looked good, I wouldn't want to be holding BNB because like the regulatory pressure that they're under is quite high, but the chart doesn't even look good. So like BNB against Bitcoin, I mean, this just reminds me basically of this, which I mean, in general, like BNB probably goes up at some point again. Like I wouldn't be too bearish on this thing in general. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this just mirrors it again and then bleeds out for a long time and at some point pumps again. A lot of regulatory pressure, a lot of stuff that I just don't want to deal with. So like if I had to take a look at something or buy like an exchange coin, I would much rather look at FTT, which is kind of like might sound weird coming from a guy that's sponsored by FTX. But I mean, my kind of opinion on that is never gonna be influenced. Like I'm not gonna be bullish or bearish on anything because I get money from whatever. But in this case, like it's pretty much like I've heard a bunch of funds talk about this too, where it's like this trade is basically going on, like shorting BNB longing FTT, or like shorting BNB longing ETH, and I still think like that's not gonna change probably. So I think like in general, like if I had to take in an exchange play, like FTT seems like a safer bet in general, but that's just me. In general, like the exchanges are going to come under scrutiny in the near future. So if you wanna if you think the exchanges around are gonna weather that storm, there's probably a really good bet still. If you don't, obviously don't. And yeah, make up your mind, like what do you kind of think on the regulatory side of things. And Binance seems to be under a lot of pressure from the Chinese side as well as from the side of the West, whereas other exchanges don't have that problem basically. Bunch of people talking about Luna because it mooned, which is always funny. But yeah, Luna mega mooned, right? And there's nothing for me to say about this. Like, you look at the coin like this, and you want to have like any TA or whatever, like there's nothing there. Like, it's just mega moon, there's no resistance. Maybe there's a better one on the USD pair. Let's look at it. Yeah, I mean, there's a big resistance on the USD pair. So, I mean, if you took the trade, you're now at resistance. If that flips, I mean, moon it, right? But like with these kind of coins, I don't know why Luna mooned. I've been away basically the entire weekend. But whenever you have like a coin that moons like this, probably because of something fundamentally happening or a pump and dump. I don't think this is a pump and dump as far as I'm aware anyway. But like I said, I haven't looked into it too much. So like TA doesn't rule here. When you have like coins going completely vertical, that's more often than not a fundamental play, and yeah, then you don't need to do TA, and then it doesn't really make much sense to ask someone that does TA to do TA for you. But yeah, it is at resistance right now. That said, it broke that resistance on the Bitcoin pair. So in general, like whenever you have a situation like this, don't be too worried about the TA. When you can start getting worried again, right, is when you have like when the momentum starts slowing down and the market behaves a little bit more technical again. Like, you gotta pick your battles wisely, right? Whenever you like, if you're a fundamental kind of guy, you can kind of buy mega dumps and then hope for the reversal. The TA guys, like, they didn't have anything to buy off of down here. Maybe on the lower time frames now. Like, look at that. Like, even like there was nothing there. It's just, yeah, not even that really. Like, you wouldn't want to be buying this on even though it's like support is like, this is laughable, right? So more the fundamental crowd rather than anything else. And I see people try to like fit everything in one box. So they're like, okay, look at this, it hit support here and then it moons, so that's why. I think that's bullshit, right? At some point you gotta have to concede and say, okay, TA isn't everything, right? And in this case, it's not everything. So yeah, sorry I can't give you like any kind of resistance or support levels, because I mean, it's just like went straight up. There's not really, like, if this goes down, you don't want to be buying it, right? Like, whenever you have something go vertical, right, into prior highs, there's two kind of possibilities. One, it just giga moons higher, which is fine, right? That's what you want to have. Or two, you want to, like, you sit there, you want to be buying the pullback, but the moment it starts going down, it's actually, like, you don't want to have this pullback on you. Because if it pulls back and you, like, look at your technical kind of setup or whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm going to be buying this support, what it's going to do at that point, it's going to bounce a little and then shit the bed completely, right? Like, with these kind of things, you want to have it moon completely. Worst case, like sideways, fine, but like with like pullback targets and shit, like, it's not going to help you. If it pulls back this far and that's the best support that you have, it's probably going to just fucking mega dump. So you would much rather, not see a pullback. So like, technical guys just gonna sit there, looking at it, being mad that they missed it, and when they start trying to buy the pullback, the rally is gonna be over. So. Don, do you have any long-term spot positions, or are you just trading short-term? I used to have like long-term spot positions, but I sold those in the 60s. Like, basically everything that I had left over for the long term, I was just like, okay, this is way too crazy, and I just sold it. And I mean, I sold a bunch of coins on the way up all the way, but like the last rest of it, like, sold it in here. And just like was like, okay, if it goes higher, I'm more than happy with what I've got, and if it goes lower, I think there's a good possibility that it will. So yeah, and right now, like, I'm thinking about rebuying, and at some point it's just like, it's still quite expensive, I think. But then again, I said the same thing at range high at 12K, and then it went down a little and then mooned. So that doesn't really matter too much. But like the long-term holding stuff, I'm gonna 100% rebuy at some point. It's just a question of like, I'm fine with rebuying it at 55. Then I increased my long-term holdings by like 10% or so, and be completely happy with that. But until then, like until I'm completely convinced that this isn't a bear market, I'm just gonna be chilling. What is the best price to spot? What is the best price to spot buy for Bitcoin for the short term? I mean, it depends. It depends. Like if you absolutely want to have Bitcoin, right? You can't like do without it. I mean, the best place to buy is now, right? The thing is, like, if you're looking at that, you're not exposed to crypto and you want to be. If this breaks to the upside, you know that you're gonna FOMO, right? No matter where it goes. So like at some point, that question becomes meaningless. If you're just looking for a trade, and I mean that's what I do most of the time. Like right now is a terrible place to take a trade on the long side of things, I think, because you're so close to like having a breakout that I mean I just think the bears would step in. But if you're on the spot side of things and you just want to have some Bitcoin, I don't think it makes much sense to be like, okay, I'm gonna wait for this to pull back at like 37.3 or 35, because you wanna be a buyer, right? So might as well. So why not DCA instead of buying back at 55? Because I think this is a bear market, and if I get to buy like at 10 or 12 or 14, I'd much rather do that. And I don't really subscribe to the DCA thing. Like if you the DCA thing, right? We can talk about this real quick. DCA is, and there's studies to this, is technically almost always worse than just buying everything at once. The only reason why DCA, in my opinion, is a really good recommendation for noobs is that noobs are not gonna be panicking if they're DCAing, right? If you buy everything at 30K and it goes to 20, you're gonna shit yourself, right? If you DCA starting from 40 and ending at 20 and your average is 30, you're still gonna be happy with it, right? It's just like a psychological thing. But like in general, DCAing is a shitty move, in my opinion. It's just like a move to kind of make you not freak out. So if you're like a beginner and if you don't want to be like the guy that sells the bottom, DCA away, that makes complete sense. If you want to have the best entry, the best average entry, it's probably not the best idea. It's just, the thing is, like, most people are going to panic, and that's why I think, like, I tend to tell people just buy a little every now and then. And the only reason why I tell that to people is because I think, like, most people just are really shit at handling money and are really shit at holding investments. So yeah, but in general, like for me, in like this, you have your top. I think there's a good chance that this is the complacency bounce, so I'm more than happy to buy higher. I'm still gonna take trades when I get them, right? Let's say this turns around and kind of breaks 40K and reclaims that on the bullish side of things. I might try to trade 40 to 50K and then still say, okay, there's a complacency bounce here, get back out again and wait and see if I get, like, if that idea gets validated or not. But yeah, for me, it's just like there's decent downside to this still, I think, and there's decent upside to it. So right now it's just kind of in the middle, which makes for, like, for me anyway, rebuying not as attractive. Bear market? What? I mean, this is a bear market. We are in a bear market. It's just a question of is this the reversal already, or is it like just the complacency bounce? And for me, it makes much more sense to expect the complacency bounce and then have your invalidation set rather than do the opposite. But that's just me. I DCA to invest and have separate money to trade. Yeah, I mean in general, like look at traditional markets, for example. Let's say you DCA every single year, right? You're gonna fucking bite yourself in the ass for DCAing, right? Let's say you have like 100K and you're like, okay, I'm gonna put that into the market in the next 10 years. And you buy the first time up here, right? In here, you put 10K, 10K again, 10K, and so on, right? And the thing is, if you did that over 10 years, so you bought the absolute top, and then you DCA into it, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Now you're done buying, right? Or you just put it all in here, and then it fucks off, and you're like you've bought at the worst possible time. And the reason why I'm like doing it like this is because this is like literally the worst case scenario. When you buy like all at once, and the best case scenario for DCA. And then your average is here, right? And in the case of DCAing over the 10 years, your average in the best case is probably still gonna be like, if I don't want to like calculate it right now, but it's probably still gonna be somewhere here, or best case like somewhere exactly where you bought in here. And then if you pick another like spot in this, and you just like DCA over like whatever, and you start down here, and then you DCA into it, your average is gonna be up here, and you've kind of missed the 2x. Like most of the time, DCAing is a shit move, and there's studies about this too. It's just like I said, psychologically, if you all in and then it goes to shit, the chances of you selling after a move like this, like it goes 60% down, and you're like, fuck, this is going to zero, are much higher if you don't have anything to buy like the dip with. So yeah, if you have iron hands and you know what you want and you know to hold it, most of the time DCA is a worse strategy. And yeah, for the people that don't know what DCA is, it's dollar cost average. Now you can Google it, but like I said, if you want to really look into it, I mean, there's billion of studies around about it, and it's been proven that it's worse over the long term. When is this EIP? I think it's tomorrow actually, or is it tonight? I don't know exactly. Like I said, my life's been kind of busy, so. Not entirely sure, but it's gonna be like this week, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be tomorrow. So can someone kind of confirm? I don't have it on my, like I haven't looked at it, and like the days are kind of moving. Do you know that feeling when like one day moves into the next and you don't actually know like whether something happened the day before or 2 days before? That's kind of been my going rate for the last week. It's estimated for tomorrow. Yeah, good. Started questioning my sanity. Busy playing golf and day drinking. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's been happening at the weekend. Yeah, the fucking weekend was wild. Did you buy a CryptoPunk? No. I'm the NFT kind of, even especially the art NFT stuff, just not my, like I wouldn't go to like an art collector or whatever and buy a picture there, because I think it's stupid. I'd much rather have like a friend paint me a picture. That's much more valuable to me. So like that's the NFT craze, the art craze. It's just I don't see the point. Like I can gamble on it, but it's not my area of expertise. I'd rather not. Now I see why people want to have it, right? It's just like for me, it's just idiotic. Like I don't see the point. But I mean, I don't really have anything against people doing it. So yeah, but like I said, I'm gonna talk with a guy about NFTs this tomorrow. Actually, we're probably gonna release it the day after. So how about a Picasso? Yeah, but I don't see the point if I don't get it. Like if someone doesn't gift it to me, like why? Like it's a cool piece of history, but I wouldn't want to pay a lot of money for it. I can just go to a museum if I wanted to. But that's like the thing. Like some people have this collector instinct for like random stuff. I don't. Like if anything, if I wanted to collect something, it's stuff that is meaningful to me, right? Like for example, like oh, this is my first snowboard, and then I have it in a special place of my house, or it's like oh, this is like a gift a friend got me for like my 18th birthday or whatever. Like that's special to me. Like I don't really care about like if someone gifted me the Mona Lisa or like someone sold me the Mona Lisa for cheap. Like why the fuck? Like I wouldn't know what to do with it. I just probably gift it to like a museum or something because like it doesn't really, yeah. But that's just me, right? And that's the thing. So for some people, like this stuff is like super cool and super enticing. For me, it's not. And the NFT stuff even less so. Like because it's all online, right? And it's like I've never even bought skins for games I've played because I don't really care. I just want to play the game. So yeah, like I think that's the best example, right? Like if you're playing a video game and you buy skins for your character because you're like, oh, this is so cool. I mean, then maybe you like understand NFTs better and you like at least the artsy side of things, and you're like, okay, this is really cool because it's somewhat of my online identity. For me, like I couldn't care less. Never bought skins. Never like the only skins that I've bought, like back when I played League of Legends, for example, um, like I never bought them, but the only things that the skins that I used were the ones that were gifted to me by friends because I was like, okay, this is really cool because it's a gift from a friend and that's special to me. Looking, most of the altcoins ran and made 200 to 500x. Do you still think that bull market will resume even when the alts have regained their bullishness? So do you think alts running while the top of Bitcoin is bearish? In general, I don't like quite get what you're asking, but I think you're asking about like altcoin strength into Bitcoin. I think like the NFT craze into like a lower high would be really shit, right? So like if it goes down here, if it gets rejected by 40.5 and it starts breaking down, then you would have like not only would you have a lower high here, but also you would have a bunch of attention in an illiquid sector, which would be bad news. You don't want to have like Bitcoin rally into like a lower high when like a bunch of new eyes are on it and a bunch of people are starting to like fill their bags, because then a bunch of people are trapped in garbage and then they get wrecked, right? And at that point, like if you made, this is the thing, right? In general, I think based on this bounce, like if we head down lower, we're probably gonna break down, right? So this makes it a little bit difficult for the bulls, because if you missed out on your 37.3 or 37.5 buys, basically you have to buy into resistance or above resistance and hope that it doesn't do like a candle like this. Because if you get to buy 35, there's a good chance that you just get run over. So I'm still probably gonna look for a buy there, but there's a good chance it's just gonna do something like this. And yeah. So you're in the situation where there's a really good bearish setup. The good thing is for the bulls that if the bearish setup gets invalidated, there's an easy squeeze opportunity. So at least something there. You still have your orders at 14k Bitcoin and 700 ETH? No, I pulled them a while ago. I mean, I put them back in if we started dumping though. Stocks tanking? Yeah. A little bit. You couldn't, I wouldn't call this tanking. They're just going sideways. Even on the 1 hour. Like if you put it on the 1 hour and it's just going sideways, I mean, not really like. tanking. This shit is fucking wild, man. This is just crazy. It's really hard to call tops on this thing, and I wouldn't wanna. I'm glad I don't have to. Like, it's up only until proven otherwise, and the moment it starts proving otherwise, I mean, you're wrecked already. And then it's already time to buy the dip again. So, like, being a bear on the stock market, I mean, you're just being an idiot, basically. There's much better opportunities. Like, being bearish, like, being correct and bearish, right? You have like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, maybe like half a year. And then you have bull markets for 10 years, 20 years. And then you have one correct bearish timing that you can kind of call, and then you have a bull market for a couple of years again. It's like, you don't want to be a bear in this market that only goes up. And it's very, very similar to Bitcoin. The only reason why Bitcoin is so attractive on the bearish side of things is because you actually get like 80 to 90% pullback sometimes. And even more so on the altcoins front of things, right? So you get like a mega move to the upside, and you get a tiny move to the downside, but that tiny move is 80% retrace. And I mean, that's worthwhile to trade on the bearish side of things. Whereas like with this, you have a giant move to the upside, and then you have like a 50% pullback, right? Or like in this case, like a 35. And that's not worthwhile to trade when you think about like the upside that you miss being bearish on it. Any chance you can look at ETH BTC? I can, but the thing is, there's nothing there. Support held for now. If you want to be completely crazy, target this. If you want to buy this lower, I mean, good luck, but I wouldn't want to. If this breaks this, I think ETH's just not a buy anymore. Like in general, like you don't want to be buying ETH, because then I think it's gonna start a new downtrend. So with ETH, like if you want to be a buyer, buy it. I think that's fine, and then get the fuck out below 0.055. Target like 0.1 if you're crazy. If you're a little bit less crazy, like maybe these highs, I think that's more realistic. And then go from there. But there's not that much here that I can tell you. The thing is, with a lot of these coins right now, there are areas where if they actually give you a dip, you don't want to be buying the dip. So you either buy and pray or you don't, in my opinion anyway. So yeah, in general, like the biggest lesson, and this is something that in new traders, like, because the thing is, like, whenever prices move down and someone called it on the bearish side of things, people always are like, holy shit, this guy is such a genius. So new traders want to be like that, right? But in general, if you want to be in a market long term, look for one that you're bullish on, and then concentrate on buying most of the time. Sometimes de-risk, right? But you don't want to be like the bearish guy all the time. And I hate that I have the stigma of being bearish all the time. Like I tend to be a little bit cautious in general, but I'm not like on the bearish side of things always. And I don't think that's a good position to be in anyway. Like if you try to short every time, and if you kind of follow people that are bearish all the time, yeah, you're gonna see like most people, like that's not a good attitude to have in markets that tend to go up, right? It's just not gonna help you much. But being cautious does help you a lot. And playing support resistance does help you a lot. Just don't get too crazy on both sides, I guess. Is it worth it to define support resistance levels without looking at their volume? It's doable with only price action. Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is with volume in crypto, you have a million exchanges. And then sometimes you have like tiny volume on one exchange, a huge volume on the other. You have like a bunch of stuff. You have people trading into themselves. You have a bunch of stuff that wouldn't fly in regulated markets, or more regulated markets anyway. Volume for the most part, at least in my experience, hasn't really helped me much. I don't need it in crypto anyway. If you move in other markets, be my guest. If you can kind of make something out of it, I mean, be my guest as well. It's just not something I use. Support resistance lines are more than plenty. And if you look at this, for example, like I drew this for for the newsletter. I was sitting there, was dumping, and I was looking at, okay, where's the nearest support resistance line, and I drew this, and look at where we bounced from. And yeah, you can add volume there or whatever, but you don't have to. Now, whether you trade that level or not is a different question. Whether you have like a setup there or not is a different question. But yeah, there we go. Why is the 40.5k level good resistance? Because it's a range high, man. Look at that. You have a bunch of touches, you have an overthrow, get another touch, that's a good resistance. It doesn't have to mean that it's gonna work, right? And like in general, I'd much rather play the upper side of it, as in the setup fails and I buy into the failure and kind of look for bears to get wrecked. But still a really good bearish setup, I think. We drew this for the newsletter. You did? Yeah, so Cred told me to draw it and I did draw it. So, I mean, technically I drew it. Cred told me to draw it, but we discussed it and we both agreed that like this was the best level. I hope Don is using a VPN, otherwise a lot of us know which town he's at. The good thing is, if you mean like down here, the temperature shit, you can actually put it wherever you want it to be, and it's not where I am. And yeah, I have a VPN. So there you go. I think I'm gonna call it. My voice is getting like, my voice already been fucked since the weekend and now it's getting even worse. So yeah, but appreciate you guys for coming by. Also appreciate FTX for sponsoring the show. Formerly known as Blockfolio. If you want to look them up, I mean, just search for FTX, you'll find it. It's FTX, not FTX Pro. But yeah, if you wanna do anything crypto with your mobile phone, FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio, is the best way to do it, in my opinion anyway. I mean, so far no one's shown me anything better, so if you want to check that out, check it out. The links are in the description, so you don't have to kind of go through the whole looking it up and then seeing a bunch of FTX apps and deciding which one is the one that you want. So if you wanna use it, just check the description. That works just fine. And yeah, appreciate you guys coming by. See you guys on Monday again on like weekly open, because like I said, tomorrow or the day after we're going to release an NFT video where we just kind of do an intro on it all, talk with someone that knows their stuff, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. Look forward to that. See you guys then. Bye bye.